This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz. I'm very excited to be speaking with John Larroquette about Night Court. How are you, John?
I'm fine, thank you. And yourself?
Good, good. How
I
are
heard
you
you're in
feeling?
LA. Are you in LA?
I am. What about you?
Okay, then I don't have to ask you about the weather. Go ahead.
Can you tell me how you're feeling now about the show now that it's come back? It's been on a few years and theoretically you have fan bases, both new and old.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience, I must say, that having done this show 35 years ago and then come back and have, again, like you said, attract younger and new audience members. And also through my fan mail, I can tell that there are still a lot of people who are just so happy to see it back that were fans of the original. And try to give them a good reason to stick around and try to be as funny as we can.
Well, I guess my first follow-up is your fan mail arriving in a different way than it was back then?
No, still manila envelopes, usually with weird photographs of myself and the cast. Sometimes photographs that I go, where the heck did they find that? And of late, for some reason, tons and tons of photographs of which I was never in, have never seen, of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They're asking me to sign with Leatherface with chainsaws across the page. So I've gotten a lot of those, weirdly enough, and also of the character Maltz that I played on in the Star Trek movie. So, and a lot of Night Court as well. But it's interesting what people find wherever they find it. I don't know.
Yeah. And how about the actual filming experience of making this show versus the original?
You know, it's very much a harmonic of the original. It's the same set. It's the same four cameras. It's the same procedure. You know, it's the same process for me. Just try to be as real and as funny simultaneously as possible, considering some of the outlandish things we do on this show. To grip reality but still be funny is always a challenge, but a worthy one, I think. But it's very similar, except obviously new faces.
Do you think that's
Except this,
reflective?
except this really old face here.
Do you think that's reflective of the industry as a whole, or this is like a specific thing trapped in time?
That's a good question. I think that if you're a four camera sitcom filmed in front of an audience, it's got to be the same. It has to be the same as Newhart or I Love Lucy. I mean, it's basically the same animal. You can't really screw with that machine very much because it is what it is. You've got a fourth wall that you never see. You've got four cameras pointing at the cast inside that fourth wall, and you do the scenes. And so I don't think that can be messed up with very much, because how else would you do it? Single camera, probably different, because of the magic of film and single cam can be edited differently, etc. But four camera, you can't. You got to do it like a play.
One of the things I've enjoyed most about starting to watch season three is the cliffhanger from the last season involving Ryan Hansen's character Jake, and just the
Yes.
fact that the two of you move so similarly and look so much alike in a lot of ways. What kind of work did you do to rehearse that?
I didn't do any. I think that all the credit has to be to on Ryan's behalf that he looked at me and figured and we're both very tall. We're about the same size. He might even be a quarter inch taller than me or so thereabouts. And whatever happened is totally to his credit. And that's also partly the story because of the storyline of last season of it's possible that Dan Fielding is Jake's father, and some of the hints laid into that was their physicality, so that Abby would see that, oh my God, they're scratching the head the same way, they're standing at the bar the same way. But that's all up to Ryan. Credit, not mine.
I also really enjoy all of your scenes with Melissa Rauch. What is it like working with her, especially with her creative role on the series?
Well, to be quite honest, I would not be doing this show if Melissa was not in it. And when we first started talking about this, she was not going to be in it. Her company was merely going to produce it. And as we talked for about a year, with me continually saying, "Gee whiz, thanks, but no." And when she finally, at some point, decided, I think maybe I have to do this with you, then I realized, oh well, I'm screwed. I've got to do this. I can't say no to her because I love her so much, and I love her work so much that it just seemed like just a match made in comedy heaven, perhaps, or at least purgatory, that it would be fun to work with her. And so that's why I eventually said yes.
How much are each of you like your own characters?
I think that she is similar in that she's got a huge heart, and I think Abby has a huge heart. I think she always looks for the best in people, and I think Melissa looks for the best in people. And I'm almost exactly the same height as Dan Fielding, so that's what we have in common.
Certainly seem to be a little bit more patient and into conversation, which is something Dan doesn't enjoy all that much.
Yes, and you know, and when you look at the genesis of that relationship, I mean, you know, when she found him, when she knocks on his apartment door in the first episode of this show, I mean, he was done with life. I mean, he was a hermit. He just stayed in his apartment. His wife had died. He just not didn't want to have anything to do with humanity. And because of Harry Stone's daughter showing up at his apartment and thinking I can't leave her, let her alone in New York, that she pulled him out of that well that he had very voluntarily went into. And so he he needs to protect her, which rather wrongly or rightly, he feels an obligation to see that she's okay.
Well, on a lighter note, it's fun to see Wendy Malick take on an increased role in this season. What is it like getting to work with her?
It's great. She and I had never worked together. I've been a fan of hers, obviously, for years. And her character is a real wild card in this group. And but as now that she's a series regular and melding into the family of this, she's we're burnishing the really sharp, insane edges of her character, but she's still wild and she'll still be unpredictable and in that sense give Dan Fielding a run for his money and hopefully. The comedy of that character, and also with the family now, because that's what we are. We are now set as a group. The six of us are it. And with the I call him the Crazy Legs Hirsch of our show with Gary Anthony Williams, who just comes in and is hilarious and then leaves. So we're all together now with that.
I like some of the bits that the show has, especially when, we're hearing just the very end of a case in the ruling. Do you have any favorite absurdities that this show has invoked?
I can't think of any offhand. I mean, that's the whole gist of this show. I was telling someone earlier today that when Reinhold Wigge created this show, he said that he thought the secret to a great sitcom was lots of doors, so that any story can walk into your world. When you look at the shows of back in the day when we were on the air, when you look at Cheers, anybody could walk into that bar. So you can create a story to have someone bring it to you. And certainly the court cases for this show has been that when the Wheelers come in, or back in the day when Michael Richards was a guest and he thought he was naked or invisible. He thought he was invisible, so he didn't wear any clothes. Or Stephen Root thinking he was deaf. I mean, you can do anything because we don't we pay homage to reality, but we're not obliged to be real.
I like that. Obviously, the show ran for a while, and 3 seasons in, that's not nothing now, considering how hard it is to really get a show made and keep it on the air. Do you think there's a lot more left in this show?
Yes, I do. As I said, I think that as far as the stories that come to us, it's unlimited. But also considering that, we've had a couple of changes in the cast in the first couple of years, which is natural if you look at the original Night Court. It took almost 2.5 years for the cast to be completely gelled. We have so much to learn about Wyatt, Niambi's character, and so much to learn about Gerg's, Lucretia's character, and so much to learn about Wendy to bring the comedy out from their lives into the courtroom. So I think we've got a lot of fodder for good stories for a while, but always working around the fact that insanity comes to us and we try to maneuver our way through it.
I've enjoyed watching you in other roles throughout the year, and one of them that comes to mind as soon as I knew I would be talking to you is Me, Myself, and I, a show that
Ah,
unfortunately did not have the same kind of, uh, you know, audience success as Night Court has had. What
correct.
uh, what memories do you have of that show?
Well, it was certainly a bold attempt, a bold experiment to have three actors playing the same character at different times in life. And I'm not sure that the audience ever completely bought into that. I mean, I used to get fan mail going, "What? Bobby Moynihan grew a foot and a half between 35 and 60? How does that happen?" So I'm not sure, but it was a great effort, and I think Dan did a great job writing it. It was an odd and unusual format to do a sitcom around, and I'm not sure how it might have worked better if. Well, I'm not sure you could do that. Have one episode, a full episode about the young guy. Have one episode about the middle-aged guy. Have one episode about the old man, me. That maybe not trying to mix them in the same episode. I think that might have been a little confusing for the audience. But it was fun to do and very creative. Great guest stars, great regular cast. Sharon Lawrence and Vanessa Williams and Bobby Moynihan. Ed Begley Jr. played my character's brother. I mean, it was great to do it. It just didn't quite click with the audience.
Well, based on what you're talking about with your fan mail, I feel like you've gotten something about every project you've done, but I'm curious if there's anything that you're proud of that somehow people haven't found as much as they should have.
I don't get a lot about the Broadway show I did, but it's because how many people saw a Broadway show. Even though I did it for a year, me and Dan Radcliffe, 8 shows a week. Don't get a lot about how to succeed in business, or the one I did after that, The Best Man with James Earl Jones and stuff. Only again, I think because of the smallness of the audience compared to the millions who might see a television show over years, etc. So I'm always pleased that anybody writes to me who says, "I like you, I enjoyed your performance," and they list some of them. I mean, there are some people that actually follow one's career, which is always very humbling for an old clown like me to know that people have watched him for a while.
Do you have plans to do more theater in the future?
I'd love to. Timing again. During Night Court and the John Larroquette show, I didn't have the time to go to in New York anyway to be in a long running play because the producer doesn't want to hire you for 3 months or 4 months, depending upon your hiatus. If it's a hit, they want you to stay around for 6 months, or as Dan and I did for a year on Broadway. So yes, but I would love to do that, and I think my television career may take a back seat once this show runs its course. There's not much more I want to do on TV, but I certainly would like to do more theater.
Well, this is Awards Buzz, so I always like to know what the people I'm speaking to are watching. Is there a show, a performance, a film you've seen recently that has really stuck with you as particularly awards worthy?
Um, that's a good question. I think that as far as movies are concerned, I watch mostly old movies. I'm sort of obsessed with the Criterion Channel, so I watch a lot of 50s and Japanese and Italian and 40s and 60s because Criterion has so many great movies and all of the Janus films, which almost all of them are now distributed by Janus for years, Bergman and Fellini, etc. I really enjoyed the Severance, which I'm waiting to come back. I would love to see it. Also Silo, which I like a lot. I just started a new one for me anyway. I'm not sure. I think it was produced recently with Toby Jones and some other people about the Yorkshire Ripper. That was a true story of the serial killer in the north of England. My wife is from that area, and she lived in England when this was happening, so she doesn't want to see it. But some very good acting and good filmmaking, I think. I like that. I'm watching that a lot. An old English series called New Tricks, which ran for 11 years, a cop show with some characters on it who I like a lot. And I'm very libertarian in my taste. If something catches my, I've got to catch up on Penguin. Bruce and I, my friend was talking about it this morning. I'm behind on that. I'm also behind on Slow Horses. I've got to catch up on that. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff being made now. It's different formats because of the streaming world. It's different than the network shows like I'm doing, but they're all worthy. Like little movies, like an hour little movies over 6 or 8 episodes. So there's a lot of good stuff out there right now.
Well, I appreciate the diversity of your tastes, and I thank you for your time today.
All right, you're very welcome, and take care of yourself.